1. I, 22 and female, work as a server at a local brunch-type restaurant chain. Because we are a small chain, we can get away with more relaxed operating hours for the staff, and stricter rules regulating what parties can get away with. One such restaurant policy of ours is that parties over 8 people cannot divide their check between patrons and will be billed an automatic 18% gratuity. This makes it easier on the servers to take care of huge parties and also forbids the possibility of getting stiffed on a major tip. And now for the story. This happened yesterday on Halloween, which was a Sunday. I was working a closing shift, and on Sundays we close our doors at 8 p.m. Given that it was Halloween, I was prepared for a dead-ass shift where I could close up early with my coworkers and head out of there by 8:10. Also worth mentioning is that I was throwing a party that evening that I knew I would be slightly late to, but nothing too terrible. Well, for a while I was right. I had 3 tables over the course of a 4-hour shift, and by 7 p.m. both the servers and the kitchen had 99% of their shit wrapped up and ready to go. Then they arrived. A family of 4 arriving at 7:34 p.m. My hostess informed me that she had let the parents know that we would be closing at 8, which the first entitled mother scoffed at and dismissed with a bitchy, "And?" Whatever, I thought, it's just a family of 4. I'll serve them as quick as I can and get them the hell out of here. Nope, over the next 15 minutes 3 more families arrived to join them, totaling their party at 14 guests by 7:50 p.m. There were 2 parents and at least 1 kid in each family, all clearly coming right from their rounds of trick-or-treating, since they were still in costume. Quick side note. This whole group of families was Middle Eastern and spoke Arabic, so I couldn't understand their side chatter. Once they had all settled, they had tried to place their order quickly. I was all for it, except I had to remind them of our restaurant's parties over 8 billing policy.
"Can't you just divide the bill by family? There's only 4 families."
I understand, ma'am. Unfortunately, even though I could manage it, it is against our restaurant policy to divide checks for parties of over 8 people, and there are 14 of you here.
"That's ridiculous. We refuse to pay for it. Why can't you just divide the tables?"
Again, ma'am, I don't really have a choice. I'm just relaying the company policy. Since we're all sitting together, I have to keep it all in one check. If you'd like, I can go speak to my manager. The second entitled mother at the end of the table huffs. They were sitting at a group of tables, pushed together, so she grabbed the table she was sitting at and moved it 2 inches away from the others.
"Look, see, we're not sitting together, so you have to charge us separately."
This continued back and forth several times, and I held back many exasperated sighs. Eventually I ducked out to talk to my manager, who was in a bad mood from earlier in the day. She left it up to me to decide whether to give in or kick them out. I didn't want to ruin the kids' Halloween because of their shitty entitled parents, so I elected to let them divide by families because it wouldn't be hard to handle. But there was a catch. Because they were still a party of 14, I convinced my manager to let me charge an 18% auto gratuity for all 4 checks, so that's a tiny win. I take their order, no fuss. One of the dads, nice dad, tried to order a beer on tap at 7:55. I told him, "I'm sorry, sir. Our bartender has gone home for the night because we close at 8 this evening. Can I get you anything else?" At the mention that we close at 8, his eyes widened. He was the only one that seemed to give a damn about the restaurant staff, so I wasn't mad at him. When I send the ticket with their massive order back to the kitchen, I hear the whole staff groan and curse. They would ultimately have to stay later than me to clean these assholes' dishes after all. 20 minutes pass, it's now 8:15, and I'm on my phone because I've finished all my other closing duties. I notice that 6 out of the 8 parents are staring at me, so I walk over. "How's everything going, guys?" "Yeah, is everything all right?" says entitled dad too. "Absolutely, what do you mean? I mean, what on earth is taking you so long with our order? Our kids are hungry." I was livid, and floored by the sheer audacity of this fucknugget. In the calmest temperament I could, I said plainly, "Well, sir, our kitchen was in the process of closing down when you arrived, so they had to get a lot of things back out to complete your order. But no worries, sir, it'll be out shortly." The worst part was he was totally unfazed by the fact that we were closed. He just nodded along and let me leave. Their food finally comes out, and I made a mistake by putting in an order of chicken tenders instead of chicken nuggets for one of the kids. the difference between these entrees literally being the size of the chicken pieces. Entitled Dad 3 was not happy about this, and actually asked for it to be sent back and remade. That wasn't happening. I refused to do that to my kitchen staff. I said, "I'm sorry, sir, our kitchen is closed and I can't have them remake any food. If you'd like, I can cut up the tenders so they're smaller like nuggets." It was dumb, but the only thing I could think of. This asshole said yes. He was so petty over the size of the goddamn chicken that his kid did not care about, that he sent me away to cut up the tenders into bite-sized nuggets. I was fuming, and my buzzer was cracking up at how angry I looked. Throughout all this, Nice Dad was shooting me apologetic looks and thanking me graciously on behalf of everyone else at the table. So they ate, pretty boring, but I was getting progressively more angry because I knew I was getting later and later for the party I had planned afterwards. Immediately after they finished their meals, I helped my buzzer clear the plates one by one. What I didn't know was that my buzzer spoke a tiny bit of Arabic, and he understood most of the family's side chatter. Apparently, all 4 entitled mothers were cussing me out, calling me a rude bitch, and complaining about how I was chasing them out of the restaurant. Of course I am, lady. We're closed, and it's Halloween. All the parents glared daggers at me as I lay down the checks and scoff once they see the auto gratuity. Nice Dad thanks me again and leaves an extra $20 on top of his autograt. So I was at least grateful for that. But they have now claimed the spot for the rudest table I've waited on in the industry, and I was so late to my party that it had already died by the time I showed up in full costume and makeup. A total bummer. And it was all because of these entitled parents who didn't feel like cooking on Halloween. Figures. 2. The worst day I ever worked was a Saturday night dinner shift, about 6 or so months before COVID. We're a relatively small restaurant, so no more than 35 or so tables in total, and 100-ish guests at a time. On the weekend nights, we didn't seat more than 25 tables at a time, 5 tables per server, sometimes 6 or 7, depending on how many tables want to sit outside. This is a pretty fast casual place, so selections aren't that large. We also have a pretty small kitchen because of this. 2 cooks on at night, usually no more than 3. And no more than 5 on the weekend morning shifts. At about 5 p.m., everything is slow. One of the 4 servers is both hungover and tired, decides to take a nap in his car, says he'll set an alarm for an hour. All good, the rest of us can handle things even if shit somehow hits the fan in that time, which it basically never does before 6 p.m. We also don't have a host for the night. But that should have been fine, since nights usually aren't busy enough for a wait anyway, even on weekend nights. And at least we have a busser. Cue the 2 cooks showing up at around 5:30. They cut the previous cooks, and everything's fine for a solid 30 minutes before my manager tells them that cooks have been assigned extra prep duty for some of the dishes. I kid you not, that is maybe an extra 10 minutes of side work they've now been assigned. And both of the cooks decide to walk out because of this. I don't blame the restaurant all that much for this, by the way. Those 2 cooks were together, and everyone else in the restaurant thought they were assholes, me included. At the same time, though, I understand this might have just been the final straw for them, so I wasn't too judgmental towards either side. Anyway, they walk out, and basically as soon as 6 p.m. hits, the restaurant fills up. We now have 0 cooks in the kitchen, just our manager, who has cooking training, but taking on 15 to 20 table orders plus to-go orders at once is not something even our best cook could keep up with, let alone just one manager. At the same time, the other server is nowhere to be seen, so we're down a server, 2 cooks, a host, no food runner or expo, and all 3 of the servers on have a full section, while we're also juggling a wait list. I start giving my tables a warning that ticket times are going to be pretty long, as in an hour or more, and fully explaining the situation to them, but of course, I still get the people who are upset, and even got the "this isn't fair to the customer" spiel from one of my tables, before they thankfully left. Some tables were cool with it, but having to explain everything to my now 7-table section, with a new table asking me how much longer their food was going to be every single time I came back out, was not fun. This isn't me raging on the customers, by the way. Wanting to know the status of your food after waiting an hour is totally reasonable. I'm just getting across that it got to be a lot with everyone doing it. Needless to say, I and the rest of the servers were pretty overwhelmed. I also had 2 tables leave as their food was coming up to the windows, so then having to explain to my manager twice that the food he just made wasn't going anywhere, and that we would have to comp it off, felt especially terrible. We also decided not to take any more to-go orders after a little while, which took some pushing. I wanted to close off half of the restaurant so that my manager wasn't completely overwhelmed, but he was a bit stubborn. So Q was having to turn away to-go orders every few minutes and getting yelled at even more. The server, who was hungover, finally comes back at 7:30 after his alarm didn't wake him up. He's pretty apologetic and also kind of astonished at the situation, but to his credit, him being there wouldn't have changed much about the angry customers or the ticket times. It took until about 8:45 p.m., just about when the dinner rush was ending, and ticket times were back down to about 30 minutes, for another cook to finally come in from one of our other locations, so that our manager could finally take a breather. My manager did an amazing job, all things considered, and we would have really drowned without our busser, who was not only bussing, but helping with the waitlist and running food for us too. I still work at the same restaurant, and luckily haven't had a shift quite as bad since. 3. The other day, our sweet little restaurant closed for a few hours in the afternoon for a back-of-house, front-of-house staff meeting. Doors locked, open sign flipped to closed, and a notice taped to the door explaining the situation, how long we'll be closed, and apologizing for the inconvenience. We're about 30 minutes in when I see in the corner of my eye someone drifting around by the door. It's been happening, people arriving, reading the notice, and leaving. I watch them as they process what's going on, looking inside to see a big circle of us all sitting there. No one's actually tried the door yet. Somehow, taking all the evidence before them, it's true that we are indeed closed. Only at this point, I see the woman who'd caught my eye pull on the door. "Do you think if we put up another sign, she'd read that one?" someone says, and we laugh. I wonder if my manager will get up and go talk to the woman outside, but she laughs too and continues on with the agenda. My manager can't see, but I can, that by now the woman is waving her arms trying to grab our attention. She taps on the glass door. "Really?" sighs my manager. "Just don't make eye contact, guys." The woman continues to be a moderate distraction for a short while before seemingly admitting defeat. Not 5 minutes later, however, back she is, hammering on the glass with her fist, yanking on the door handle. Tapping so much I have new appreciation for the life of aquarium fish. This woman is hopping mad. She does everything but shake her fist at us. And she might have even done that too, it was hard to tell. More muttering from my manager and co-workers at the persistence and stupidity of this woman. By this point, it might have made more sense to go talk with her and tell her to leave, or maybe that would have just made things worse. But we were committed, and she wouldn't hang around for that much longer. Right? I have to pause the story briefly to introduce a new element. I'd opened that day and had a couple of campers enjoying our frigid patio. Really nice two-top. They'd already settled up, so I just swung by to let them know a staff meeting would be starting and service would stop. They were more than welcome, however, to stay and chat, and could exit through the gate, as we'd be locking our patio door. They thanked me for letting them know and joked they didn't mind that I wouldn't be serving them, that they were just glad we weren't kicking them out. Got back to the staff meeting. The woman has abandoned the front entrance, but I can see through the glass doors onto our patio that she's now there instead, leaning over the fence, evidently talking to the two-top. And this 60-something woman is having a full meltdown, flapping her arms, shaking her fists, and possibly screaming. A nice time to have sound-resistant glass, or it would be, if I weren't so curious to hear how that conversation played out. She doesn't leave for a full 5 minutes, just bitching about us to this poor table. My manager has no clue this is happening, and it's all directly behind her. Had she known, she probably would have by now done something about it. But I'm too in awe at the lunacy of the situation to do much more than watch it unfold. A few more angry gesticulations, and finally, I see her get in her car and speed away through a stop sign. I wish I could say I got a recap of their conversation, but the two top left just before the meeting was over. My manager shook her head at the thought of the 1-star review everyone agreed we were bound to be receiving shortly. I don't understand people, I really don't. Did she not read the notice? See the sandwich board inside? See the closed sign? And if not, was she not tipped off by the fact that despite her obviously audible door banging, no one was going to let her in? Not only were we closed, which means you won't be able to order food, we're also, as per the notice, in the middle of a meeting, which means we cannot pause to talk to customers to tell them that yes, we are closed, and no, they can't just get something to go. Just bizarre. 4. Stories from about 20 years ago, back when I was still thin-ish, still pretty and still had all my hair. In the gap between finishing my A-levels and going to university, I got a temporary job in a town centre pub populated by people from all walks of life. It did serve food, so hopefully I'm in the right place. It's a horrible cliché, but this place was a proper British boozer. You genuinely had builders next to lawyers next to OAPs on every table, all talking to each other like family. Quiet after 7 p.m. on weekdays, but Friday, Saturday was always heaving, especially if the football was on. One Saturday night about 10 p.m.-ish, chap comes into the bar. I hadn't served him previously, but judging from the stack of empty glasses on his table, he and his friends were at least 6 pints in each. "Hello, sir, what can I get you?"
This is an Irish bar, isn't it?
Translation: This is an Irish bar, isn't it? Bearing in mind the pub is called Scruffy Murphy's, there are Guinness, Beamish, and Jameson signs everywhere. Yeah?
So you're all Irish?
No, mate. As you can tell from my accent, I'm a local. Northwest England. The landlord is from Cork, but most of us are from round here.
Bollocks. I bet you're all IRA.
Thinking he must be joking and trying to steer the conversation back to something sensible. No. Same again, is it? Drunk idiot, like a switch had been pressed, went aggressive and raised his voice.
Ah, you're all fucking sticky body terrorists.
Hang on a minute, sir. No need to talk like that. We're all having a good time tonight and don't want it spoiled. I'll get your drink sorted and we'll be fine, okay? Side note. Despite being a dork and a ginormous coward, I didn't look like one. I'm 6'1", was reasonably fit. At that point was around 240 pounds and sporting a grade 1 shaved head. Think rugby prop forward shaped. This has caused me problems with older men trying to assert their manliness and superiority. Since I was about 15, that I try to deflect by being excessively polite, even for a Brit. End of side note.
You fucking chickie. I'm gonna see your fucking throat.
He then proceeds to grab a pint glass and lunge towards me over the bar. Time stops. He's not actually going to go for me, is he? Do I duck behind the bar? Do I run away? Curl up into a ball and shout for my mum? Fortunately, the decision was made for me. Drunk idiot disappeared, swiftly followed by the main door of the pub slamming, and a shout of, "Fuck off now or I'm calling the police! By the way, you're fucking barred!" from the landlord. As it was explained afterwards, he'd been sat at the end of the bar with one of his friends, who just happened to be a bouncer on his day off. They had seen the whole exchange, and at the sound of a raised voice from drunk idiot, decided to eject him. I start to breathe again. "Sorry about that, lad. These things happen. Just part of working at a pub," says the landlord, walking back to his seat. "Really? Okay, no problem, boss. By the way, what does your mate drink? I think I may owe him a Crash! Drunk idiot in his beer-addled mind thought it was a genius idea to bang in the window opposite his friends to get their attention, presumably to get them to join him. Problem was, he'd misjudged the force required to tappy-tap-tap on the window, and had put his fists through it, slicing his arm to pieces and showering the table with fragments of glass. Cue ambulance, cue police, cue end of his evening. 5. Me, 19 mil, decided to quit my office job, and decided I wanted to work as a barista. So I started looking and found a good reviewed coffee shop close to my home. They were hiring, which I found odd considering it's a very good-looking shop they got going. So I went in and met the owner. She gave me an interview. It went smoothly. Moving forward, first day on the job. They don't have a training course for newcomers like me who has absolutely no clue about coffee or the equipment. So the employers made me work on grinding espresso shots, Rama, etc., etc. It all went well. They were super nice to me throughout the process, grateful for it. So I wrote down everything they told me and watched. Second day, I did everything that I was taught, opening the lights, cleaning windows, cleaning tables, opening the cash register, and counting the money in it and opening the espresso machine, grinder, kettle, etc., etc. I did it all correctly. It was just me and the owner because the employee that taught me yesterday had to get surgery. Owner asked what I was taught yesterday, so I told her. She goes, "That's it?" I was a bit irritated by the way she said it. I thought I learned pretty well for a first-timer, but boy, was I about to be in for a wild ride. Customer walks in for cappuccino. Customer walks in, asks for a cappuccino, cold takeaway. So I did like any first-timer would do, pull out my trusty note and measure. But no, she said put it back and scolds me for not remembering. And for the whole entire day, she treats me like I'm a dumbass for not knowing what I was doing. When I asked her to teach me things I don't know, she was irritated. I was miserable. Sure, the employee taught me, but they didn't teach me everything. Third day. Unsettling feelings start to come, but thankfully the owner wasn't there. Same routine goes, and I meet another employee, super nice and informative. And when I asked questions, she would answer them instantly without hesitation and with pride. Customer came in and asked for a different extraction method, which I wasn't good at, and she knew, so she said to me to do the cash register. Everything goes buttery smooth. And when I pulled out my note to measure, she didn't judge me for it, because we would remember things as we go. Fourth day. Came to work, as I usually do, to do my routine. I do everything they taught me. Owner walks in. My whole mood changed instantly. She asked me if I did my routine. I'm always an honest guy, so I told her yes. Doesn't believe me. Big Dumbo treatment comes, scolding, scolding, scolding. I was miserable the entire day. She sees that I'm miserable and comes up to me and says, "You're not gonna quit on us, are you?" After saying that, she would walk back to where she came from and gossip giggle right in front of my face. Like I could hear them talking about me. I never had a problem with the customers or the employees, they're all so kind. But my problem is the boss. What should I do, guys? Is it my fault? What did I do wrong to deserve this? I woke up at 5 a.m. every morning to open her shop, cleaning, opening, prepping espresso like they told me to. I never lied in the interview about how I knew how to make coffee. I was honest throughout the interview about how I don't know anything about coffee or the equipment needed to make one, because I needed them to teach me the things I don't know, and not just stand there like some schmuck that watched others do the work. Eventually, I gave her my notice and told her exactly why. She was surprised. However, I'm extremely relieved and relaxed that I did it. Now I'm looking forward to my next job with caution and preparation before I hand out my resume. I'd like to thank everyone who gave me advice and support and the opinions of my situation. It's interesting how many have been in my position. Seriously, thank you all. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, episode 157. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like and subscribe. We'll take a break off from the comments today, and why not? We'll comment tomorrow, don't worry about it. Alright, let's see, it is Saturday today, isn't it? Thankfully a more peaceful, been a more peaceful week than it was last week. Less fireworks, not none. I'm still hearing the occasional one go off here and there. Well, hopefully this Saturday will be more peaceful than last weekend anyway. Although it is the weekend, so... We'll see. I'll do my bestest to have a Phasmo gaming stream tonight. All the Halloween stuff seems to have been removed from the game, which made me sad, but there should be a Christmas update coming in a few weeks. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.